Good afternoon, everyone, and the VMUG Delhi community and the VMUG India community. I'd say welcome all of you on board for this session for vROps 8.2. We are joined today by Iwan Rahabok. He's the he's a senior product line manager, and he's the architect of Master of Operationalize Your World. He's been a true master in the sense that he's been driving vROps adoption and monitoring adoption across the globe. He's travels a lot across the globe, and he basically discusses all these monitoring needs with the customers. I'd let him introduce himself when I hand it over to him. But I just want to thank all the core committee members as well for for organizing this session and having Iwan on board with us today, join us for the session. So we are joined by our core committee members, which is Varun Sidana, we have Pranay Jha, and we have Sahil Anand, who are the core committee members. I just want to thank them for organizing this session. And I don't want to take too long here. I just want to hand it over to Iwan. Iwan, you can go ahead with the introduction and then all about the goodness of vROps.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's all, the session. I think the session is recorded, right?
So, yes, it is. It is being recorded.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. There was a questions on it. Yeah. For me, it is always we start with the customer. I was sharing earlier that without the customers, we wouldn't be where we are today. In fact, it is customers like you guys, VMUG. I shared that I started VMUG in Singapore, in ASEAN 12 years ago. Yeah. And that is why we are very close to customers. And that is why I invited Sajak. Sajak was a customer. I met him in Thailand. Don't ask why an Indian doing in Thailand. But he was a champion for a big UK retailers in Thailand, right? And he has joined VMware since then. So very happy to welcome him to the family. He's actually on vacation today, but I asked him to join me here because he went through a transformation, right? Re-architecting the environment to make it proactive. So he has a lot of what I call it real world experience, just like what you guys have. Right, what I have is a collection of theory that I learned from you guys. So that's why I asked Sajak to join here. I know he's on vacation, but there's a lot. And he was actually, because of what he has done, I actually asked him, we actually gave him, invited him to present at VMworld with me. And it went very well, of course, because it's real world sharing. And then on the second year, he was invited to both Barcelona and San Francisco he was sponsored by VMware itself. So that was a good collaboration, and I'm very happy to have Sajak finally joining VMware. Okay, so that's that part. Let's get into the, and I see a couple of familiar names. Siddharth Naik, thank you for joining. Feel free to chime in, Siddharth. Right, later at the end, I will talk about the good stuff that we've been working on, Siddharth, on horizon monitoring. Yeah, and with that, let's just flip it. This is a pretty big deck, guys, and typically I've been to India several times. It's always a joy to be there, right? I really want to come back there. As you know, I do like a 1 day session. If it is internal, I do 2 days, but today we have about an hour plus, and with Q&A at the end, right? So pardon me if it's gonna like jump slides here and there. I'm hoping to give you guys a taste, and if it is beneficial, more than happy to come back for a deeper dive. I've been in IT for, God, by now, I'm 25 years already. I saw a lot of changes. I saw a lot of that hardware becomes a commodity, right? I used to work for Sun Microsystems before I joined VMware 13 years ago, and I used to look down on VMware, on vMotion, on x86. This is toys as far as I'm concerned, right? Because I used to be doing a high-end storage array, high-end Cisco Director, that kind of thing. And but things have changed, right? And with hardware infrastructure becoming a commodity, and with virtualization is no longer their servers, but it becomes a service. So there's an impact on us. right? That we need to move on. The way I see it, I think it's already happening. That people no longer care about your customers, no longer cares about the underlying infrastructure, the systems, right? But this is a service to them, right? And so you need to move up. I'm seeing customers moving up from a service, from a system architect focused on the technical part. Don't get me wrong, you still have to know technical part, but what I'm trying to say is you gotta think also that your creation, your architecture, what you design, that has to be presented as a service, has to be consumed as a service. When as a service, it has a quality of service definition, right? And I think this is something that I'm seeing a trend. Oh, by the way, there's a chat here. What is it? Okay, right? And so because of that, when you are architecting the environment, right? Think of it. Let's say 10,000 VMs, you are asking for a brand new data centers to the CIO, you're asking for lots of hardware, right? And what is the purpose? Well, the purpose is this, is to serve the VMs and application. Now, if that is the purpose, what is the KPI? What is the KPI of your architecture, right? There is a mindset flip here that you buy from VMware SDDC, or you buy from Dell, or you buy from whatever vendors. But what you sell is an IaaS. Your customer, the application team, or the people who are buying VMs from you, or pods, right, or containers from you, they are not buying SDDC. You buy SDDC, you sell service. So this is the KPI. Now, if this is the KPI of your IaaS, how do you measure it? Right? Because this one does not ask about how busy your clusters, your NSX, your vSANs, your whatnot. It's asking about the VMs. It's asking about the application. So this is something that you got to think of. Can we come up with a metrics for that? Right? And that was why I was sharing earlier. When I was in Bharti Airtel, 3 weeks in Bharti Airtel is where I learned with Sachin, with Saurabh, right? We learned that how do you do this, right? So if this is the KPI, how do you deliver it? Well, because certainly, how do you treat mission critical VMs and how do you treat a test and dev VMs are different. So there's a concept of class of service. If you are in a business class versus an economy class, you pay a different price and you get a different treatment, that's for sure, right? And in the context of IaaS, there are two things. When you buy a bunch of VMs, right, the reason why you pay for, you pay more for basically the same set of hardware, because it is a software-defined data center, it's not a hardware-defined data center. So it's the same underlying hardware. So what are you paying as a customer? Well, it has a different level of service. For example, on the test and dev, the uptime of your VM is maybe 3 nines, but on a goal maybe 4 nines. So it is different, and that's what you are paying for, right? And I meant your VM, not the infrastructure, because you as a customer don't care. And the clusters can be down so long your VM can be half down so long your VM is up. Doesn't bother you. Now, availability is largely given. Yeah. Anyway, doesn't really matter what you have. If the VM is down, the customer is going to complain anyway, right? What is difficult is this, because what is fast? And this is where you need to think through how you're going to do this. And hopefully what you see in 8.2 is we're moving towards this, and to help you quantify this thing. If I'm speaking too fast, just let me know, yeah? I'm jumping slide in the interest of time. Now, I want to talk about a couple of contexts, then we move towards a demo. So I'm going to jump slide here. We see a lot of operations, they are alert driven. There's a lot of alerts here and there. At the same time, customers are complaining, Iwan, is too many alerts, you know, can we be proactive? So a concept that we are introducing in 8.2 is insight. So it's not an alert, and it's something that you do proactively. You are not waiting for it, right? And instead of seeing a list of VMs that is affected, you are seeing the big pictures. You are seeing the whole thing, the whole 10,000 VMs, right? And so it complements that. It does not replace it, and it complements that. So this is a topic that I hope to share, to demo later on. That's one concept. Another concept that we want to share is there is a difference between monitoring, like you got a fever, that's monitoring, and troubleshooting is why you have a fever, right? It could be you got too many drinks last night, or it could be something more serious. So we distinguish between what and why, and the what is like, how do you know every single VM is being served well by the infrastructure? That's part of the what. Why they're not being served? That is inside here. Yeah? So this is the concept that we are adding. Now, another concept that we are related to that, okay, monitoring and troubleshooting is part of a process. Basically, there is pillars and process. Pillars is what you manage. You manage. Actually, you don't manage VMware. You don't manage your NetApp or your Cisco. You don't manage your Windows. You manage availability, right? You manage performance. That's what you manage. And inside here, there are the process. First, you architect for performance. You architect for availability. Like you would ask your boss, what are we looking at here? Are you looking at 5.9, 4.5.9? How are we measuring it? Per month, per year? Based on that, I will architect it differently, right? Because I am architecting according to plan. There is a plan. What kind of performance are we after here? Is it 10 milliseconds or 15 milliseconds, this latency? Because that will define the kind of hardware I'm buying, right? Now, once you architect it, that is day 0, and then you build it, which is day 1. Now, after that is day 2, which is operation. And in day 2, you first begin with monitoring it, right? You monitor all these things, and you will find basically only 2 things. There's something wrong, go and fix it, or there is nothing wrong, go and improve it. So the process and then the pillar. So that is another concept that you are seeing in the product, basically. The other thing that you will be seeing in the product is there is a concept of what you manage, which is the pillars just now, right? And input to what you manage. For example, you don't manage utilization. You don't like, utilization is very high. Let me go and make it a little lower. Or it is low, let me make it a little higher. You don't care about it, basically, right? What you care is you looked at it in the context of performance or capacity. That is what you manage. And because of that, and the context determine how you use this thing. For example, in the context of capacity, certainly you are looking at, let's say, 3 months of window. You don't care about one particular spike of 5 minutes, right? Because you don't make a hardware decision based on that. But on performance, you care about it. You care that even like 1 second, you may care about it because there can be revenue implications on that. On the other hand, if it is performance, if performance is bad right now, right, and you are saying that, and you tell your customers, why are you complaining? It was good 3 minutes ago. The customer's gonna say it's irrelevant. It is bad right now. We are being hit. You gotta fix it. So even 3 minutes ago is irrelevant. It's the same thing, right? So it's the context of how you are using the counters. And we focus now on there are 2 kind of counters that you will see in the product. That we group them into contention and utilization, right? This is the primary counter for this. This is the primary counters for this. Now with that, let's move on to the dashboard. And I'm going to cover this thing. Let's look at performance, and I'll give you some examples of the dashboard, and then oh, by the way, if there's any question, just ask your question and we can take that. Yeah, that's not a problem. This this session is for you guys. I don't have to finish this thing. We can turn the whole thing into Q&A and demo. I'm perfectly fine with it. Whatever works for you guys. I think in performance, before we manage 10,000 VMs, let's manage a single VM, right? And because if we can't manage one, we can't manage 10,000 anyway, right? So typically the story that we have seen is a VM owner complain and say, look, we think it is your infrastructure, right? So can you do something about it for me, right? So, and what answers do you give? Ideally, this is what you want to give. You say, look, you know, you don't have to call me, okay? I'm very busy right now. So I have a lot of Instagram followers and Facebook followers that are talking to me right now. I don't have time for data center. You go and check it yourself. There's a self-service dashboard. Go and check everybody. Everybody is there if you think that I am not serving you as well as your neighbors, yeah, the other department. Because let's say you think that I don't like your face. No, just go and check it, everybody. Everyone in the same class, economy, same service. Everyone in the same class, business class, same service. Right? And that thing answers all these questions. This is a very simple slide that you can use for your customer that says basically, look, this is your VM, right? This is your VM over here. You don't care how many neighbors in here so long you are being served. Neither you care about how hard my ESXi is working so long you are being served. Okay, there are two things that can impact your performance. Number one, something inside here. Number two, something outside here, this part. Okay, and I'm going to give you visibility into all three, but just take note, there are three different things, right? And I can't control this portion. I can't control this portion. I can control this portion, right? And this is something that you share with them if they want to have something more technical. Essentially what you say that, look, you buy a VM from me, it comes, let's say, with Windows or Linux. You then go and install your web server. Okay, now, if your Windows is not performing, let's say there is a driver problem and Windows disk queue is high, it's definitely going to impact your application performance. If your web server is not configured properly, it's definitely going to impact the application performance. Windows may not know anything about it. Windows may be fine, right? But it is your JVM or your database, memory, working area is not configured properly. That particular app is going to suffer. Windows or Linux doesn't know anything about it. So the upper layer does not impact the lower layer, but the lower layer impacts the upper layer, right? And this particular slide is also good to tell that if there is no contention, what you want is you want your Windows or your VM to be running at 100%, right? And because when you run at 100% is when you are doing more work than when you run at 99%. So we distinguish that between the type of counters, which is contention and utilization. So there are many things, counters that are impacting this performance, right? There are counters inside the guest and there are counters outside the guest. And I'm including the utilization counters here because there is one limitation in vROps today is we are taking a 300 seconds average. Yeah, and I'm aware of this limitation, and I'm aware of this limitation, and if you guys feel this is a very high priority, drop me an email, drop your TAM, especially your TAM, your account SE, your PSO consultants, an email so they can champion you internally in VMware. Yeah. So with that, let's show the dashboard. What have I got here? The 253. Let's use this one. Let me see whether I can make it a little bigger. I'll try, okay? Because this thing, oh, it works. Okay, because I'm still using a beta build and this is an older beta. I think the first thing that you notice was the getting started has been revamped, right? Remember that I talked about the pillars of operation, the what? They are here, right? And remember I talked about the process, the flow, troubleshooting, and optimizing. They are here, right? And I think a sharp eye among you will say, hey, Iwan, dude, it's only 6. You talk about 7 pillars. You are cheating us, or it's a bug. No, guys, compliance is not here because compliance has been made to be basically a page. A page. This is compliant. It's a page now. It's no longer a dashboard. Yeah, and while this is a dashboard. Now, certainly, I'm aware that the story is not perfect. I think we should try to make it more consistent in the future. Now, we talked earlier. I talked that your consumer and the providers, IaaS. Now it comes very closely like this. It is all consumer and providers. It is distinctly. You notice that vCenter may not talk about consumer and provider because vCenter is an administrative tool. vROps an operation tool, right? And so we distinguish that. So with that, let's talk about it very fast. We talk about the first dashboard. Now, you notice the 2 counters, contention utilization, they're split. They are split now, right? Because we want to educate the application team that, look, there is a difference between contention, which can impact the performance of your VM, and utilization, which is the higher it is, the better it is. Yeah, and there was a question on the Q&A here: is vOps removed from vROps 8? I think the answer is no. And the good thing about it is vOps is taken care of by the team in India. So Raminder, my suggestion is organize a session with Mohit. Mohit is the man that handles application. Yeah, and he can tell you more about vOps, Telegraph, etc. Yeah, my short answer is go to Telegraph. And if you feel that in Telegraph the dashboards, the metrics don't come up nicely, I'm more than happy to work with you guys on that part. Yeah. So now you notice that the dashboard follows a progressive disclosure, meaning when you load it for the first time, it looks blank. And there are 2 reasons behind it. I don't want to load you guys with information. I want to zoom your attention to this part. That's number 1. Number 2 is if I'm going to load everything up front, it's going to impact the loading time of the dashboard. So from here, I'm selecting a data centers. Let's say I take one of these. And what it does, it's the dashboard is split into 2 areas. There's a summary at the top, and then there's details at the bottom here. And what it does, it analyzes all the VMs in the data centers, all the running VM. By the way, this 235 and this thing is 210 because there are some power of VMs. Yeah. And by the way, there's a little bug. I think if I do this, let me check. Yeah. Oh, there isn't any. Sometimes because when it is made small, it is too small, can't see it. And let me see it one more time. Maybe they are here. Now see, this thing is very tiny, right? And sometimes you might miss that. So just maximize it and it will be more visible. So see this thing? This thing wasn't, there are 2 of them, right? But when you go here, it's kind of like, not like you can see it, but I can see it, but it's so thin. Yeah. So what it does is like quickly for the entire world, I can analyze every single VM there, whether they're being served in terms of CPU ready or not, right? And what you can do also is this. what you can do, I'm going to maximize this thing. Take a look at this. This is the maximum, right? I'm doing a transformation of max. I'm not doing current. Current means I'm showing the current data, right? And that thing is not so good if you are watching this dashboard. Let's say you are bored, right? On Sunday at 3 o'clock in the morning, you are bored and you decided to log into the data center and check stuff. And there is no performance problem because there is no load. That is current. That's the problem with current, right? And it shows you whatever data that you are seeing at the present time. But if what you want to do, Iwan, I want to see the last 1 day, or this is in fact the last 1 month, right? And I want to see the last 1 day, okay? Because I log in every morning. And as part of a standard operating procedure, we log in every morning and we ask ourselves, how is the environment performing, right? And if you do this thing, let's say, Iwan, we don't do this every morning. We do this like twice a day. So let's do it every 8 hours, right? That is fine too, right? And what it does, it checks in that period, it takes the highest value. And I think that's what you want, because then you know, let's say you set that number to be 1 day, then if this number is all like this, then I can tell you right away that in the last 24 hours, not a single VM in a sense. Well, there are some bit more here, yeah. And so you can quickly tell that majority of it is good. I have more CPU problem than memory problems. I'm not serving the VMs. They are contending for memory less than they are contending for CPU. So that quickly at the glance tells you that. Now, so that is a summary. And certainly you can modify this thing, including a lot more counters, right? Iwan, how come post stop is missing? That is why we have an edit button here, right? Just go and customize it and add the dashboard, add the CPU cold stop. That's not a problem. And hey, Iwan, I want some CPU cold stop and CPU ready. I don't want to see 2 of them because anyway, they mean the same thing, meaning whether it is cold stop or ready, both are equally bad. They mean the same thing, meaning that my infrastructure is not ready. Go and create a super matrix, add them up, and you have it, right? I see, I've been using vROps since 1.0. And I know some of us like to tinker, like when you buy a car or motorbike, right? You customize it, you change the tire, you change whatever, right? And you make it yours. This is the whole point with vROps. It's we can't satisfy 35,000 customers, but we can make it customizable for our customers. Now, I'm going down into details here. So certainly if I choose something like this, it's going to show just a bit more VM, right? And you notice that the first column is a host name, because that is what your application team know. They don't know VM name. Maybe they don't have access to vCenter, but they know the host name. So that's one thing. The second thing you notice, the column is called KPI bridge, because you are serving them CPU, memory, disk, network. That is what they are consuming from you, right? And you promise them a certain level of standard. And this is the standard that we are giving out of the box. And it's a very good standard. I would say, I'll be quite surprised. I would say about 99% of the workload we should be able to handle. We should be able to, this standard is good to go basically, yeah. And I had the privilege of working with Intel itself, and we did a profiling of about 40,000 counters, and over a couple of weeks, in fact, I think over 6 weeks, right? And I'm happy to learn from them that the counters that I have, that you're gonna have out of the box in 8.2, it holds water, right? And okay, so that's that part. So you measure all this thing, right? And basically for every single VM, you check it. 1 bridge, 2 bridge, 3 bridge, 4 bridge. Or 0, 0, 0, 0. That's the ideal. This is this number. That's why 0 is good, right? And 4 is bad. 3 is bad, 4 is bad, right? And then next to it are the supporting counters that make up these numbers, right? So if I click on this, for example, now there is something. Now there is something here that is the VM being served well by the infrastructure. So this is asking this counter, right? If I'm gonna click on this, the counter is number of KPI bridge. So this is a new counter. And if I drill down into the VMs and I get inside here, I'll show it to you. You will find it here. There you go. Right? And so there is a tooltip that explains that, where 0 means the VM is being served, right? And that is the counters, right? So this is showing in the last 7 days that, so if I get into the last, so that's why the numbers you see here, they're just ranging from 1, 0, 1 to, well, there's never been 4 because it has been served. It's, the highest bridge was 3, right? And if I get into, let's say, the last, I think 24 hours, the numbers is probably all, it's all 0 over here already, right? So come back to the dashboard. So this is just not a KPI bridge, right? And now you can see this thing that, what are these columns? Let me show it to you. Now you notice, guys, that when I do a demo I go into edit mode a lot, because to me, this is what is meant to be. I have never seen 2 customers that have an identical vROps deployment basically into the dashboard. Right? So notice that I am using maximum. I'm using current here for the host name because I want to know the current host name. Oh, there's a question. Which version you are showing? I'm showing 1.0 that we had 8 years ago, yeah? And the one that you have right now doesn't have all these features. This is the old version I'm showing. I'm just kidding, my friend. I'm showing you 8.2. 8.2 is coming up October the 5th. I'm showing you this one. This one. So this is coming up. This is our baby that is coming up October the 5th. Yeah. Now, but you know, people say, hey, Iwan, vROps is like your baby. You work on it since 1.0. Yes, and but on the other hand, guys, you can criticize. You can say my baby ugly. I'm perfectly fine with it, guys. Yeah. And what I'm interested is how do we make it better, especially taking your input. Yeah. And that is what I care about. How do we make it useful to you? That is, to me, that is the biggest thing I value in the product development. Now, notice here maximum. I take the maximum numbers, right? The highest numbers I'm taking. I'm not taking the current numbers, right? And I'm not taking the average numbers. I'm taking the maximum numbers, right? And in here, I set it to 1 day, the last 1 day. And because I wanted to know when I log in the morning, I want to see the last 1 day. Right, and again, if you think that is too much, you can change the period. This, well, you notice this is 3. Hey, Iwan, hey, dude, where's the 3 here? Is a bug, man? No, because I set it wrongly here. There's a limitation. See, this guy is this guy, right? And because it takes the max, right? And So why we are taking the max is because in performance, we care about early warning. And so that is why we're taking the max. And you notice later on that in some situations, I do not take the max. I will take a 99 percentile or a 95th percentile to ignore the outliers, yeah? And so, what else? So now the counters are here, right? All the counters that we talked about earlier. So in this thing just now, here, all these counters, as many as possible, I'm showing them. And we don't have every single one of them. For example, I missed this one, guys. My bad, I missed this one. This one is hard for some reason. I don't think there's any API to it. I have to check from the VMware tools team, right? And we got this one, which is this guy, right? This is coming from Windows or Linux. But this thing is hard. This thing is coming, let's say, from your PV-SCSI or your LSI logic driver, right? And I gotta check with VMware tools whether they have API for me to retrieve, yeah. And if you want it, again, talk to your TAM, talk to your SE, talk to your PSO, let them be a champions for you internally in VMware, and we'll drive these features. Right? Right. This is the driver. This is coming from Windows and Linux. This is coming from, let's say, your VMX Net 3, right? Which I don't have. I don't have both. Now, so with this, you can tell the application team, look, whatever inside here, guys, I cannot control it. It's you. I sell you a VM. I can control outside. I can fix this thing for you. This is my area, which you can't fix it. Okay, but inside here, it's yours, man. If you got a CPU run queue that is high, but your utilization is low, there's nothing I can do. If your context switch suddenly increase for no good reason, I also don't know, man. Is that because I don't even see it, right? So that thing, so that's why we are showing it inside here. So with this now, you can be transparent with an application team. Look, every single VM is here, by you don't trust me, is it? But everybody is here, right? You think I hate you, right? That I don't serve you well. Let's look at everybody is here. You can click anyone's VM if you wanted to here. And I'm giving you a lot of technical counters here. Now, they get really technical. You don't have to worry about it. You know, this is what, just think of it as, you know, so long it is not red, you're fine, right? I have set this threshold, right, to be stringent. So don't worry about it, right? I've set it to be stringent. Now, so this is, as you notice, it just goes on and on, right? There's a lot of counters here, and you get also the one inside the guest. Now, certainly, if you don't have VMware tools, this thing is not gonna appear, right? I know, let's pick something. I think all of them have VMware tools nowadays. Maybe this thing will be blank. It will show us no data inside here. Sorry, guys. You pick a VM with a VMware tool that is outdated, this thing will show no data, yeah, because that is coming from inside the guest. Now, what is missing here is the VM utilization counters. Remember we talked about this portion, right? We talk about contention and contention. Utilization, it's something else, right? We talk about this, contention and utilization. So now you can tell the VM owners, if you think it's because utilization is high, then you go to this dashboard. So you are here, okay? You go here now, there. This is the one you go, all right? And you notice familiarity of the design, right? And again, you select a data center, you get an analysis over here, and you get now utilization. This is now all utilization counters, right? And there is no contention counters here. So now we can talk about whether you need to have bigger CPU or not, or you need to have more RAMs or not, right? Now, you may ask me, hey, dude, hey, you miss something, man. Hey, product manager, lousy, yeah, you miss memory. How come you don't have memory? What kind of product is this, man? What am I buying this product for? So memory, guys, is a form of storage. And let me stop sharing here quickly, see whether I have something to share with you. Because I'm using a shared computer, right? My wife, my two kids are sharing it, so there are like some funny things. Yeah. Okay, what I want to share with you here, in a sense, what I talk about, they are documented. They are documented in Microsoft Word. As you can see here, we are still finalizing it. Maybe I no markup first, I hide all these things. So we are documenting it, right? Hopefully that will make it easier for you, right? This is about 70 pages so far. So if you can't sleep, man, I recommend you read this one. I'm pretty sure you fall asleep, yeah? Because I fell asleep writing it, man. So what I want to say in this thing, memory is a form of storage. So I'm going to demo it by doing this. Okay, this is my laptop. I mean, this is my desktop. You are looking at my desktop, right? As you can tell on my screen, I'm just running WhatsApp because that is the most application in the world, the most important one. I'm running browser, right? Zoom, Microsoft Word, and this. Okay, and this is my CPU utilization. I've got like, I believe I have 8 threads here. I believe I have 8. If I'm going to open resource monitor here, yeah, this is an 8-core. This is a pretty new desktop. So I have 8 cores. Yeah. And so you notice that that's my CPU utilization. And it's pretty active. It goes up and down, right? Because of course, WhatsApp is active in the background, I guess. Right? Zoom is definitely sending my voice to internet to you. That's why. And we can actually see what stuff is running, right? You can tell CPU Zoom is taking 43% of my 8-core. That's very interesting. Okay, look, 8-core, 4 cores, 8 threads, right? It's saturated. Now, so, but if you look at memory, so I have 16 gig here. That is my physical. This is a physical Windows 10, right? There's no VMware here, and you notice that it is steady at in use is what 10 gig. It is using 10 gig and it's steady. You notice that the chart it barely moves compared to the CPU. You see that the CPU is up and down. The memory is steady. And you notice out of 10 gig, it actually compressed 776 megabyte. It compressed it. Why does it compress it? It doesn't need it, obviously, right? And then the remaining of this thing is actually cache, it's standby, right? It is not being used, but it is readily available. It just say it here. It is not being used, it's readily available. See? Code that is not actively in use. Now that to me is a bit of a mistake, because if it says here, contains cache data and code that is not actively in use, what does this mean? When you say in use, guys, it is in use in terms of, think of your hard drive, let's say 1 terabyte. You put a lot of the children, family photo there. That's it, man. It's being used. It's being occupied, consumed, but there is no active read and write into it. This is a space. This is not a speed. So there is no read and write here, because if there is a read and write of about 10 gig a second, my SSD will have a wear and tear and it will be finished pretty fast, right? So that is why I do not put it here, because it is not performance, it's capacity. It is not just because your memory is being used more doesn't mean it becomes slower. It doesn't work like that. It's just a space, it's not a speed. Now, having said that, I understand that at the VM level, you care about it. So we provided the counters. Yeah. And there's questions here. Sorry, yeah, I missed that. What about the generate to customize report such as resource? Yeah, so I think reporting is always there, right? We do not make enhancement to it in 8.2, but report is here. This is where report is, yeah? And you can generate it. And so I hope that meets your requirements, all right? Now, it's got the basic reporting features. I tend to think like this, guys. Let me share with you. So in this doc that and by the way, I'm happy to release this document, yeah, because it's just a documentation anyway. And I see it that people like to have report. And I have a different, I would say, philosophy to it. I said that report is passive. Think of it that it is something that is consumed because somebody doesn't have access to vROps. Otherwise, I just log into vROps, right? Right? And so somebody doesn't have access. So maybe it's an email, right? Or you are in a meeting, right? So that's the kind of thing. And with that, then you want to have question. The persona that doesn't have access to this, what is the use case for that? And in that area, I have not been able to crack what kind of reports are actually required, as opposed to actually this report. It is best met by a dashboard, man. Why do we need a report for that? So with that, I'm keen to work with you on understanding the use case of that. Yeah. So next question, multiple views are created to form a report, but can we have the view name as heading while we generate the report? I think the answer is no, right? And again, this is the part, Sridharan, if you're not from VMware, talk to your VMware guys, schedule a meeting. I'm more than happy to understand why you need to have this. Now, my apology, when I deal with customers with this, whether you have 200,000 VMs, just like when I was in Bharti Airtel, right? Bharti Airtel was kind enough, Sunny and I arrived there on Sunday, and on Monday we went to see customer, and in the JIT was giving me a long list of requirements and like 14 items, and I actually asked in the one by one, like, why is it needed in the, who is needing it? What action is taken, right? And Indo was kind enough to spend half a day with me going through it. And at the end, we together come up with a solution that is useful for the customer. And I think that is what makes sense, yeah? Rather than answering this kind of question, I need to know the context, okay? Question from while creating report, if the subject as no, I'm afraid this is not addressed in this release. Yeah. Niha Bansal, what is the major difference between 8.1 and 8.2? The difference is in the number. One is 1, the other one is 2. Other than that, both begins with the letter 8. I'm just kidding, brother. We'll have a whole set of technical enablement. You are seeing whatever I've spoken so far is basically 8.2. So you get a taste of what is new in 8.2 on this thing. Whatever you see in this document here, this thing, 70 pages of it on the dashboard alone, these are all what's new in 8.2. There is basically nothing here that is not new in 8.2, right? And you will also see that you may say that, hey, dude, Iwan, what happened to my old dashboard? Yes, they are deprecated. They're all here. All your 8.1 dashboards is basically deprecated, but I do not delete them. Neither we don't even disable them. They are still available. If you miss the old one, oh, I missed that old one, Iwan. You know, I used to spend the weekend with the dashboard, you know, as my friend, you know, the two of us in the data center. Yeah, there's the old one. This is a new one. There are two of them replacing one dashboard. Yeah, because we want to distinguish the concept of contention and utilization. Yeah. So I hope, Neha, that answers your questions. By the way, I would suggest that you get like Mohit or Sajan, the PMs in India, and to get you an overview of 8.1 to 8.2. Yeah, because there are many other features that I do not get the chance to work on, and they work on it. Yeah. Is this document manual available online to download? Yeah. And not yet, because we have not launched. We have 8.2 is not yet available. It is announced, right? It is announced, but it is not downloadable. So the document is going to be made available as part of it. Actually, this document, it is coming basically into the manual. So the manual will actually be having this document. And what I'm trying to say by that, if you actually, that's a moment, too many vROps, get confused. Okay, another new feature in 8.2, you see this thing in the corner here? That takes you straight to the actual page that explains this thing. Now, this thing is still draft, but instead of this, you will see the content of this. You will see the content of this guy. You will see the content of this. This is coming basically copy paste into this. Yeah. And so it's direct. So you will have it available. I mean, I will make it available as Microsoft Word document for you, so you can see it at one shot. You can do this, you can like do an outline. Let's say you want to show level 3, you can do that kind of thing, right? And show text formatting. So it's more flexible. And I see also it's very convenient for customers also to give feedback. A Singaporean man, there's a bug. I'll give you a Word document. You can make annotation and give me feedback. My email is just Iwan@vmware.com. Okay. So this is the VM contention, and this is the VM utilization, right? Now, again, in the VM utilization, right? You notice here. You see this thing, this is 100%. This is not 100%, Iwan. Yes, again, because we are taking the maximum. Yeah. And why? Because when the context of performance, we care about it. Now, if you feel, hey, Iwan, you know what, in my environment, it doesn't work like that, man. Okay, it's too extreme. Okay. So there's nothing stopping you from going here, go to percentile, and Iwan, I'm going to take 99%. Okay, and you are taking 7 days here. I don't want to take 7 days, man, because it's too long. There's no point going back 7 days, Iwan. It's just go back 1 day is good enough. Whatever happened from a performance standpoint, whatever happened 24 hours ago is irrelevant, right? So you can make this kind of changes, right? So that's that one. So that is why it is a higher numbers, right? And a certain they are color coded also, right? And I put the numbers that I think is reasonable, right? In terms of when it changes colors, but certainly you are most welcome to change it. Oh, one more thing in 8.2, yeah, because this doesn't, this particular features, I don't think we're gonna make it, okay, I'll just show it to you basically, what you can do to it. Right, something new in 8.2, yeah. Anyone, who the hell does networking in megabyte, yeah? Nobody does that, man. Everybody is in gigabit. There you go, gigabit. Done. Right, so now it's gigabit. Yeah. So you have gigabit, you have megabit, right? What else I'm gonna talk about? Now you notice that for memory, how come Iwan there's no active, there's no consume here? That's what vCenter is showing. You should be showing as active and consume. No, in this context, the context is performance, right? So I got that those two counters aren't relevant in this context. What you want to see is the one inside the guest. So this is I'm showing you inside the guest, and also I'm showing you the page in, page out inside the guest. This is not outside the guest. Yeah. So that's that one. What else? Yeah, comment from Niha, so far looks the same. Yes, because we do not make new changes on the widget itself. Yeah, and they would be changing in terms of look and feel when you get into, let's say, I'll show it to you something. I completely agree with you, by the way. Yeah, and so this is Horizon. So this thing is 8.2 look. This is the look of 8.2. Right, so this is new capability. Right, this thing is using a gradient features inside here, gradient. So this is a new one, 8.2. Right, it gives you a more polished look. Yeah, and then the other thing also in 8.2, it's let's say if we do something like this, let me share with you in 8.2. This one, for example, right? Something new in, you notice my top end here is no longer blue. It has a meaning now. It is red, this is green. So now top end has the ability to have a color coded, right? So this is new features in 8.2, right? In 8.1, they are simply blue, right? And even in the blue, they look different. If you put it side by side between 8.1 and 8.2, you will hopefully find, I'm gonna take one 8.1 over here, and you will see the difference. Yeah, so Siddharth was saying Sparkline is also new. That is correct, right? And but anyway, there'll be time there'll be time to show you the UI some other time. Let's focus on the functionality first, right? So I was just showing you one VM's capacity, VM performance, right? And I want to flip now to a cluster performance, right? So I'll show you VM performance, and there's some more question here. Yeah, Niha, you can create all these dashboards basically, right? Okay. The question from Niha is, can you create dashboard for recommendation? How much can be reclaimed? Yeah, why don't I'll just answer that question here, Niha. So this thing is what you get in the products out of the box, yeah? So this is what you get in the products right out of the box, and I can see my environment, and this is the various clusters, and these are the VMs to be reclaimed. And if you are back to my point earlier that I see vROps as something that you customize, let's say you say, hey, Iwan, I do not know which clusters is big, which clusters is small, man. This is just going straight to the VM. I want to get some feel about this cluster so I can focus on that. And man, I have like 10,000 VM, man. This is going to be a long list for me, man. And can you like give me something that complements this thing, right? And so actually you can do that. It's, for example, you can do something like this, right? And so in the right sizing, right? So you can, again, in the data centers, now you can see what is the size of the data center. Now you can see it, which you can't see it earlier. Within the data centers or within the entire world, you can even see which clusters you should focus on, which one is running low on capacity when I need to reclaim from those clusters. And I only want to add, I want to increase the size of the VM CPU only on those clusters with plenty of capacity. So I need to know the cluster situation before I go and do all the VMs, which your page doesn't give me. So now you can have a dashboard that complements that, right? So this is one way of doing it. Certainly you can click on this thing and you can get the details on that, right? Now, there's also nothing stopping you, Iwan. This is not good enough for me, man. I want to customize this thing. This is an example that I customize. Let me check. Wait a minute, yeah. There you go. So I customize this. Yeah, see the right sizing dashboard, right? So this is what you're gonna get out of the box. And this is what I customized it to be. So this is the same thing, except this now is using the gradient, so it looks a little nicer, right? I changed this thing into a table. I don't know why it's not working right now, but maybe let me try to refresh that. Something is strange. Don't do a live demo, guys. Yeah, but essentially, you saw just now, I added, see now instead of a simple capacity remaining, hard to see, one I'm gonna have time remaining, whatever, I added information inside here. And now I can go down to a particular clusters, it will update this thing. I can do it clusters by clusters. I can focus now. And instead of having to click here, which is inconvenient, I gotta go inside. I don't want to do this one. I just want to see it straight on the top end. And then from here, then I want to get into the VM property. So you can. So I hope that answers your question on how you can customize it. Yeah. So that is the VM, the VM right sizing, VM performance. Let me now jump into the infrastructure. Yeah, let's flip into from consumer into provider. Okay. Now in the providers, which is clusters here, yeah, there are a couple of things that we need to take note. So you see, we talked earlier about utilization is just a means to an end. It is not something that you manage. Yeah. So we got to use it in the right context. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is it is possible that you have bad performance. The VMs are getting high CPU cold stop, high CPU ready when the cluster is barely running at 40%. Right, this cluster is actually a 32 node ESXi running 2,000 VMs. This particular cluster is a very large cluster. Yeah, this guy. Here's another example. This particular cluster, as you can tell here, 774 VMs. This thing is a 16 node clusters, right? As you can tell here, that the demand is about 50%, but the contention is very high, right? And you can have, so basically, there are many reasons why you can have bad performance at low utilization. Could be infra, it could be a lot of things basically. So as a result, we have a new counters in 8.2, which is your cluster's performance counters. You have seen this counter where we count from 0 to 4, and now this counter complement your cluster utilization. So now you can do things such as, hey, Iwan, I want to drive my cluster utilization high as possible because that is productive, right? And I get more efficiency, but I want to watch performance. I don't want to compromise performance, right? So in the cluster contention, now you do have the cluster's performance counters, these counters now. So what is this counter? What is the formula of this counter, right? And this, let me just drill down into it, yeah, to get you see it. This is this guy. This is the brand new counter. This guy. Where 100% means all VMs are being served well according to the threshold that we talk about here. And I shared earlier that is a very good threshold. It's a stringent threshold. So does it mean, Iwan, that you are collecting a lot of counters? Absolutely. Absolutely, you are absolutely right. So an environment with 5,000 VM, right? And so an environment with 500 VMs is 2,000 data points per 5 minutes, right? Because it is 1 VM is 4, so that is 5 minutes, yeah. So in a month, there's a lot of counters being collected. So, and that to me that's the essence of vROps. I learned from the VMUG leader of Singapore many years ago, and Ronald Buder, right? He used to work for one of our largest customers is a bank, and he said vROps is big data. I slice and dice my environment, and what we are providing to you is that analytics right now, right? So that performance counters, right, is what you are using. And now come back to the dashboard. It's this guy, right? And by now you kind of get used to it. Iwan, this is the worst performance. Look like you have taken the lowest number in the last collection, in the last monitoring period. You're right. I've taken the lowest number in the last 24 hours, right? And now this is 5 minutes. If you wanted to know, Iwan, that's a bit extreme. Yeah? Can I know the average? Yes, you can know the average, but you know, in performance, if you wait for half of your VMs are not being served well, it's too late. So that is why we wrote down here, okay? It focused on proactive performance. The worst is shown, okay? 95th percentile is used, okay? Instead of 99, because I want to complement this. The worst is basically, if I do this is as good as essentially doing this. It's the same, right? And so we are using 95 instead of average, because average is basically this, which is too late. So that is why the two numbers are being shown. Basically, if this number is pretty close to one another, you have a problem, because at least 5% basically the population. But if this number is very far, that means it's only 1 time or 2 times, right? The moment you get down to this, you are pretty okay. So now you know the performance of every single cluster, right? There is nothing stopping us now from doing things such as, why? Let's take an average of all of them. right? Let's take an average of all these things. So I know overall the performance of my IaaS. Now, finally, we get to answer the question that at the very beginning, the very purpose of your architecture is to serve the VM. This is being answered by that question. You've got 10,000 VM. There are 40,000 questions every 5 minutes, right? And we answer that question day in, day out, basically, right? So, and certainly, because you have this counter, there is nothing stopping you, Iwan. Oh, by the way, this counter, because this is an average. If you have 10,000 VM, there's an average of 10,000 VMs, yeah? You don't expect this counter to drop every 5 minutes, to have a big drop in any given 5 minutes. Think of it like a stock market, your index. Your index cannot crash in 5 minutes, yeah? Because that means a lot of VMs are affected. So this number will be, it should be steady, right? It may not be a high number because that is maybe your situation, but make sure the relative movement of it, it doesn't drop. That is not a good thing, yeah? Now, there is nothing stopping you also, Iwan, you know what? The number may be average, maybe 98.48, yeah? But you know what? It doesn't mean that there is nobody affected, man. I want to have a counter that says count the number of clusters in red. Then you can do a super matrix for that, right? And so you can customize that. So that is what I want to talk about on the clusters performance. Now, when it comes to containers such as cluster, yeah, there are, I would call it, two sides. There are two sides of performance. It's number one is basically how bad it is, and number two, the moment you know that it is bad, you wanted to know how many people are affected. So there is how deep and how broad. How deep is, what is the worst VM CPU ready, Iwan? 2.5%. Okay, that's good, man. Everyone is happy. And what is the worst VM contention in the clusters? 7%. Oh, fish, that's not good. Your next question will be, how many people are affected? Because the answer to that question changes the way how you troubleshoot. Are you looking at an isolated incident, or are you looking at a widespread problem, right? These two questions, how broad, how deep, are part of the cluster's monitoring and troubleshooting. Notice I do not use average at all here. It's got no purpose here. I am using the maps, and I'm using percentage VM facing performance problems. So that you get these counters. See, I don't know why it's not appearing here. There's something wrong in this setup. There, you got it. So this is the worst. This is the percentage, right? And this is the worst percentage. And we added a couple of things just to complete the dashboard. Now, from here, there's another new features in 8.2. You see this thing? Say if I do this, right? It's kind of like, it's kind of like wiggling here, see? You can click on it, navigate, and I can drill down or drill up. I can move sideways from dashboard to dashboard. I just move to cluster utilization, right? It's selecting the same cluster. So I'm passing context basically. If I want to show everybody, I can just go here, right? So that is another new features of 8.2. And you can daisy chain this dashboard if you wanted to. I can go down here to ESXi now, right? So that's that one. Now, guys, I'm just mindful, and we are 10 minutes left. I've been talking and not listening to you guys. So Raminder, everybody, if you want, we can turn to Q&A right now. But you notice that I've only covered a very small portion of the dashboard. I only cover, I'll show you. I did this, I did this, I did this, and I did this. Well, I did a bit of this. That's basically what I've done. There's a lot of things inside here. Yeah. And what else do we want to talk about? Oh, we have 10 minutes, yeah? I'll show you something else. I'm happy to share, and Sajan, the PM, is also based in India. This thing, I'm very proud to say this is made in India. Yeah, and this particular Horizon management pack, yeah, that is coming up. I won't steal the thunder from Sajan. Let Sajan make the announcement to you guys. I will just do the technical portions of it, right? What I'm very proud of it is this guy is the first dashboard. I mean, the first management pack where we are basically leveraging the full features of 8.2. So you notice now, this is Horizon connection servers, right? And so this thing is listing all the connection servers that I have, okay, in Horizon, right? And this object is the connection servers. And I have, as you notice, a KPI concept of connection servers, right? You see this connection servers. And I get details such as connection, of course. But you notice here that there's a lot of counters on connection servers. And now you notice a couple of new counters in 8.2, yeah? And why not? Why not? Well, I'll do this instead. Why don't I drill into it? Let's get here. Maybe I'll show that. Maybe this one is better, because I can show to you something else. Okay, this is a VM, yeah? This is a VM. What you will notice, this guy. You see that? This thing is useful. You know, it's quite amazing. Some of our customers are running like 100 CPU VM. So when you are running 100 CPU VM, you're gonna check the CPU ready one by one for 100 CPU. And that's pretty tough. Then, just the highest among every single CPU, done. Same thing. If you have like if you have a monster VM, if it is like 64 CPU VM and running at 50% or 70%, it could be that one particular CPU is running hot and you don't know, right? Because it can move around. This answers that. This answers that, right? The other thing also, why don't I just do this? There you go. Okay, you may see that you have a database, right? As long as it has like 20 or 30 virtual disks. On average, it's good at the VM level, but one of those 30 can have a bad read latency or write latency. So you know what? We are summarizing, we are taking the peak of any virtual disk read and write. So now you can see it. So now this kind of visibility is new in 8.2, and that gets taken advantage by the Horizon management pack. Right? That is why I'm very happy with it, because I feel that this particular Horizon management pack that is coming up, I think November timeline, this is where we really showcase the capability of 8.2. It has a lot, the interface change, the counters change, and I can do this kind of thing now. Okay, let me check. Let me compare. Let's say, let's get something that is more higher numbers, or whatever it is. I can compare read latency and write latency. I can compare it side by side. Or I can add write throughput. I can compare write and read throughput. I can do that. Or I can stack it up, see whether it's too high. So now it gets stacked up. So I can even do things, Iwan, we don't like to have contention. So I'm gonna add this. I'm gonna add ready, go stop, IO wait, swap wait. I'm gonna add the mark, man, to see whether the total is high. You got it. Right? You have it here. You wanna see them individually? You have it. You believe that that big VM doesn't know how to leverage, let's say, 32 CPU, there is a usage disparity among the individual core, you have it. You don't have to analyze it. It's done. So that is what's coming up with the Horizon management pack. And certainly things such as, let's say my RDS farm, let's just pick an RDS farm. Yeah, so this is an RDS farm, right? You can get down to an RDS host, right? And you can even go up to the clusters, to the site, etc. inside here. And notice the farm here, like you don't have to individually check every single host. It's checking. What is the longest queue among any of my hosts? It's checking that. What is the worst CPU ready among any of my hosts? What is the highest utilization? It's checking all of these things. You don't have to go it one by one. Right? And we are also showcasing inside here, if I take, because you are using, let's say, Horizon use vSphere at the end of the day, right? And you want to say, Iwan, I want to see a live dashboard of the performance, so you can have it here. And when you choose a particular cluster, I want to see as many counters as possible color-coded. So you have like a lot of counters. So this is 9 KPI on the memory, 7 KPI on the CPU. So a lot of things is being checked. And you can also go down to the pool level inside here. And each of these things, you can click on it and it shows inside here. So it's very convenient. And the threshold is being shown also here. So this is why I said I'm very proud of this Horizon that is coming up out of India in November. I've got 2 minutes left. There are a couple of more questions here. Okay. Will my custom dashboard move to deprecated? No, your custom dashboard will stay wherever they are. We can't see the culprit VM with the worst CPU ready. You can, but you probably need to have a custom dashboard for that. Yeah, I always face problems after vROps upgrade. Yes, there can be some hiccups. Hopefully that is no more. Can it pick up logs from vRealize? I'm gonna let PMs such as Mohit and Sajan answer that. I think the answer is yes, but I have not seen it yet. There are some cool stuff coming up on login side. I'm currently using 7.5. Is it possible to move to 8.2 directly? No, it is not possible. You have to go down from 7.5 to 6.5 to 5.5, then go up. I'm just kidding. You can go up to 8.2 directly. And I'm migrating to 8.x. What will happen to my current dashboard views alert definition? If you are not modifying using admin accounts, the out-of-the-box dashboard, you are safe. If you use the admin account and modify out-of-the-box dashboard, clone them first. Once you clone it, you are safe. Because the way it works is dashboard with the same IDs are overwritten. Yeah. Other than that, I'm happy to stay. You guys probably tired of me already.
Yeah, Iwan, thank you so much. I think it was awesome, and especially the Horizon part. Yeah.
Are you just being nice to me?
No, it was indeed good. I mean, we don't have any open questions for now. So guys, if you have any questions, we can still give a couple of more minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to stay. I hope you like it.
And instead of questions, you can feel free to put any feedback in the chat box as well. Yeah.
I hope it looks different to what you have seen, right? And I hope it gives you the visibility that you've been asking for.
Yeah, Iwan, I think we are good. There are no more questions. So once again, thank you so much for such a wonderful session.
You are most welcome.
Yeah.